So, any questions, ladies and gentlemen?
He can't face me. He cannot face me. He's got no balls.
I know you're looking for clout.
No, I'm not. You're the one with the YouTube
and maybe a
channel.
few people will believe you here in this crowd.
You have more clout than me,
but the reality is, bro, all you're doing is
me.
you're acting like a man baby right now.
No,
you're just acting like a man baby, bro.
Let's have a civil
I'm not interested in talking to you today.
He doesn't want to talk to
That's
me.
correct.
He
You're right.
does
I don't.
Because
right.
He cannot answer my question.
So, ladies and gentlemen.
Answer my question.
I want to try and give a talk. Let's see how we do.
Let's have a civil conversation instead.
Okay. Firstly, are there any questions about any aspect of the Christian faith?
I'm going to keep heckling you.
Anything to do with our values, our beliefs, our traditions, our customs, our history?
They all want to listen to me, Bob.
Is there any questions, ladies and gentlemen?
Here, Bob. I'm the big man.
Then in that case, if there are no questions,
I'm the big man.
I want to talk about the Bible.
I'm going to keep heckling
ladies and gentlemen.
Unless you answer me, Bob.
I want to talk about the Bible. So, I want to be clear what the Bible is and how Christians view the Bible. Christians view the Bible not as a foundational text. The community started by Jesus Christ predates the Bible, and the Bible testifies to that fact. Luke says that there were other people that wrote stories before he wrote his gospel. John states, ladies and gentlemen, John states in his gospel that there are stories about Jesus that are not in his gospel, and that he could have continued writing more stories. Paul writes in 1 Corinthians, ladies and gentlemen, that 1 Corinthians is not his first letter to the Corinthian church. In other words, the church that Jesus Christ founded was there before the Bible. And that means that you have to think about the Bible differently than you think about the Quran. For a Muslim, the Quran is the foundational text. It is literally that Islam begins when Muhammad starts to get the revelation. That's how Muslims see the Quran. It's a foundational document. As a Muslim, you must not think that about how Christians view the Bible. We do not view it that way. The second thing that you must be aware of in the Bible is how Christians use the Bible. The Christians use the Bible as it is interpreted by the church. So it's the community that interprets the scripture. A bit like how as Muslims you interpret the Quran through the life of Muhammad. So you use the hadiths of Muhammad's life to help you in your interpretations of the Quran. Well, that interpretive authority for Christians is found within the church. Why? Because the church wrote the Bible to the church, and the church used the Bible to teach. And so at every level and in every way the Bible is used, its authority is within a living community that is the church.
Are you talking to yourself again, Bob?
But I want to be clear. Just as the hadiths are essential to Islam,
are you talking to yourself?
The Bible is essential to Christianity.
Are you mad, Bob?
Now, ladies and gentlemen,
talking to yourself again, Bob.
Muslims, as you know, don't agree upon which hadiths to use.
You want to talk to me, Bob?
If you look at the collections used by the Ibadi, or you use the collections by the Shia, please take your hands off.
I'm sorry.
Don't touch.
I'm sorry.
If you use the collections by the Ibadi, or you use the collections by the Shia,
have you got mental health?
Or you use the collections used by the Sunni, all of those collections are different.
Who hurt you, Bob?
And just as Muslims have different hadiths, Christians have different Bibles,
Who hurt you?
ladies and gentlemen.
Who hurt you? Tell me who hurt you.
No, Muslims don't say that because there are different hadiths used by Muslims that you can't trust any hadiths.
Are you depressed?
And Christians don't say that because we have different Bibles, you can't use the Bible. But, ladies and gentlemen, there is more agreement amongst the Christians about the Bible than there is agreement amongst Muslims about the hadiths. You disagree, O Muslims, more about your hadiths than we do about our Bibles.
You're talking to yourself.
We Christians disagree about just 7 books of the Bible, but Muslims disagree about thousands of hadiths. Why? Because the Shia don't respect Aisha hadiths. And so, since she was the one that remembered most hadiths, Muslims disagree about thousands of hadiths. And that's just one example. Ladies and gentlemen, we Christians have multiple different translations of the Bible. You can find them in any good Christian bookshop. But do you know that there are multiple different translations of the Quran, and that they are different in their translations? But does the fact that there are different translations of the Quran invalidate the Quran for you? No, it doesn't. So just because there are different translations of the Bible doesn't invalidate the Bible for us, ladies and gentlemen. But then you might say, but there are textual variants in the Greek and Hebrew manuscripts, ladies and gentlemen. And you would be 100% correct. There are textual variants in the Bible. Do I sound remotely embarrassed? Do I sound that I'm trying to hide that information from you? Dr. Bruce Metzger and Dr. Bart Ehrman and Dr. Daniel Wallace all agree that these textual variants do not in any way affect the message of the Bible, ladies and gentlemen. That is the scholarly opinion on these textual variants. But are you aware, Muslims, that different versions of the Quran have textual variants? And that these textual variants change the local meaning of certain verses, such as between the Hafs and the Warsh Quran, for example. In one, it describes that the prophets fought in the way of Allah. In the other, it says they died in the way of Allah, in the same verse between these Qurans. Well, there's a difference between fighting and dying, because not everybody who fights dies. And not everyone who dies died fighting. So there you have textual variants that you can check. Go away and research it, O Muslim, because I know you don't believe me. But go and check for yourself. So, with all of this introduction said, ladies and gentlemen, I want to talk about a particular translation that Christians reject and that we say is not the Bible, ladies and gentlemen. It's called the New International Version. And I'm just going to move back towards the fence. So if you want to join me, I'm just going to move back towards the fence. So the New World in Translation of the Bible that is released by the Watchtower organization is a translation of the Bible that we as Christians reject. In other words, we as Christians are telling you that this is not a Bible. This is a propaganda document released by an American religion called the Jehovah's Witnesses, a religion founded in the 1800s. And we Christians reject it because it deliberately abuses the Hebrew and the Greek. It deliberately mistranslates. And I'm going to give you some examples of what I'm talking about. Because not everything that calls itself a Bible is a Bible. So the New World Translation translates Genesis chapter 1 verses 1 and 2 like this. It says this, and I'm going to read from a Christian Bible first so that you can hear what the actual word should be translated as, and then I'm going to give you what the New World Translation gives. So in Genesis chapter 1 verse 1 it says this, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and desolate, and there was darkness upon the surface of the watery deep. And God's active force was moving about over the surface of the waters. That's how the New World Translation reads it. But where the New World Translation reads God's active force, the Hebrew states the Spirit of God was moving over the waters. So do you see how the New World Translation has manipulated its translation? The Hebrew says that the Ruach of Elohim, that the Ruach of Yahweh was over the face of the deep. But the New World Translation states God's active force. Ladies and gentlemen, for example number 2, the Watchtower translation always translates the Spirit of God. Bear with me one second. They often translate the Spirit of God in the Bible as God's active force, even though those words never appear in the Hebrew or in the Greek. In other words, they're making up words and they're putting it in there. Another example, in Acts 8:29, it says, the Spirit of God said to Philip, go up and join the chariot. Well, how can an active force speak to Philip? How can something that is just an energy, an activity of God, be a person that speaks? In Zechariah 12:10, it reads in a Christian Bible this, and I will pour out on the house of David, the inhabitants of Jerusalem, a spirit of grace and supplication. They will look on me, the one they have pierced. But here's how the New World Translation translates it. I will pour out on the house of David and on the inhabitants of Jerusalem the spirit of favor and supplication. They will look to the one whom they pierced. Do you notice the difference? They will look to the one whom they pierced versus they will look on me, the one they have pierced. So in other words, the Hebrew says that God is the one that they will look upon and pierce. In other words, it's prophesying the crucifixion, but the New World Translation hides the fact that God is speaking about himself when they say they will look to the one whom they pierced. Another example, John chapter 1, verse 1. The Bible should be translated, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. But the New World Translation records it like this. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So in other words, they're introducing another God to the verse that the Bible and the original Greek manuscripts don't support. I'll give you another example. In John 14:10, the Bible should be translated, "Do you not believe that I am in the Father and the Father is in me? The words that I say to you I speak on my own initiative, but the Father abiding, he does his works." The New World Translation records it this way, translates it this way: "Do you not believe that I am in union with the Father and the Father is in union with me?" Is that the same as "I am in the Father and the Father is in me"? No. The New World Translation is deliberately trying to hide the divinity of Christ from the Watchtower movement, from this American religion called Jehovah's Witnesses. They are literally hiding the divinity of Christ. Let me give you another example. In Colossians chapter 1 verses 15 to 17, it should be translated, "He is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. For by him all things were created, both in the heavens and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities. All things are being created through him and for him. He is therefore all things, and in him all things hold together." Now listen to how the New World Translation, that propaganda piece of the Jehovah's Witnesses, translates the same words. "He is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation, because by means of him all other things were created." Do you hear the difference? The Bible should be translated that through him all things were created, but the Jehovah's Witness Bible inserts all other things. In other words, it's trying to imply that Jesus was created. Let me ask you this. Why would you need to insert words in your English translation that are not there in the Greek if your beliefs matched the writings of the writings of the ancient Greek Bible? Why would you need to put in words that the manuscripts don't have unless you're trying to hide something from your followers? It's exactly the same when Muslim translators get hold of their Quran and deliberately insert words in the translation of the Quran that aren't there in the Arabic, because they're trying to hide things from their followers. They're trying to suggest things to their followers. One example would be that the Quran says that the Spirit of Allah blew into the vagina of Mary. But Muslims don't translate the Arabic faithfully. They hide that fact in their translations. They make it suggest that a Spirit of God just blew into Mary, but it doesn't say where. As if it blew into her mouth, or into her ear, or into her belly. They literally lie in their translations. Just like the American cult of Jehovah's Witnesses literally lie, ladies and gentlemen, to their followers. We Christians believe in faithful honesty as a value. And so we value faithful translations of Scripture. And I want to tell you, brothers and sisters, that right now there is a danger facing all of us. There is a danger of non-believers like Dr. Bart Ehrman and people he considers his friends who don't believe in the Christian faith, affecting the translation of the Bible to hide what the Bible teaches. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a custom in Bible translation that the translators should be anonymous. so that all the glory goes to God. And that custom made sense when everyone who was dealing with those translations was a Christian. But we don't live in that world anymore. And so now I invite every translating society, every church that commissions a translation of the Bible, to publish the names and accreditations of anyone who works on a Bible translation, and what books of the Bible they worked on, so that we can know who is telling us what. And if it becomes apparent that they're coming to the Bible with a political agenda, that those people should be barred from working on translation of the scripture. And so I openly call for the barring of the barring of non-Christians from translating the scriptures. And you all need to start talking about this, because there is a danger in the future that non-Christians will be influencing the translation of the Bible. Any questions, ladies and gentlemen? I can't see you, by the way. I'm blinded by the light, so if you put your hand up, I can't see. You just have to speak up. Any questions going once? Any questions going twice? Okay, any questions about any aspect of the Christian faith? In that case, guys, I'm done. Anyone who wants to join me for a coffee, feel free to come with me. And for all of you that watch this later, just look for yourself on the video evidence of how much evangelism was wasted today. By Christians.
By whom?
By sectarian Christians who love their views on their YouTube channel more than they love the gospel.